things does not always work. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Fan Talk. I am your host, Paul Jr. Today, I am being joined by a very grateful man of RiseUpRXNs. He is a Atlanta sports fan, mostly for the Atlanta Falcons. Rise Up, how are you doing today?
I am doing all right. Still recovering. I know we're fairly into May now, and it still feels like a hangover from April. So it has not been a good time to be a Falcons fan in social media.
Yeah. Obviously, we're going to talk about that. Your draft reaction, show a video. I just wanted to get your overall opinion of first, why is this playing? Overall reaction of how you think the Falcons, obviously over the last few years, I would say mediocrity. They have some moments, drafting Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts being amazing as he is, and then Drake London. How do you feel over the last few years? Do you think that your team should have been better, or I don't know? How do you feel like your team should have done over the last few years?
So I understand that you were a Bengals fan, and then we've talked a little bit. I know you grew up a Saints fan, so we sniped Terry Fontenot from you guys back in at the end of 2020. So he's been with us. This was his fourth draft with us, and he was kind of kneecapped by the previous regime. We were paying bad contracts to Julio, to Matt Ryan, Devonta Freeman, Dante Fowler Jr., guys that just either got too old for the money we were paying them or just weren't worth it anymore. Or we ended up with just bad contracts on players that didn't pan out for us, and we still ended up owing those guys money. So we were very much kneecapped by both the aging talent and the inability to bring in fresh free agents. And, we've been picking 3 years in a row now. Last year, it really felt during the middle of the season, especially the early part, we should have been better. I look back at last season and I look at the games. I've got the schedule pulled up now. We started out 2-2. I fully agree with that. Ended up going 3-2. We shouldn't have lost to the Commanders. That was a quarterback fluke. We almost lost to the Buccaneers because Desmond Ridder, who's no longer in the team, fumbles 3 times. We lose to the Titans because I don't know, just Arthur Smith. That's the only answer I have. Vikings, we lose to freaking what was his name? The guy who came off the bench and did not play. What was his name?
Josh Dobbs.
Dobbs. We lost to Josh Dobbs.
Okay.
He was basically playing backyard football, and we turned the ball over twice, like in 2 successive drives, and just turned the momentum away. Cardinals, same thing. Kyler Murray coming off of an injury and just lights up our secondary. It's like I look back at all of this and I'm like, we should have been better last year. We should have been the division champs. There's not a solid reason why we weren't. But the 2 years prior to that, I would say, you had to kind of calm your expectations with this team. I fully expected us, though, not this past year, but the year before, to have like the last pick in the draft. It was not the last pick, the first pick, number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
Just because of where we were, what talent we were able to get. I am incredibly critical of our drafts. Incredible. And not just this one. I'm incredibly critical of the Kyle Pitts draft. We passed on guys like your Micah Parsons. We passed on Penei Sewell, passed on a lot of talent. Who's the other? The Denver guy, the corner? We passed on the Denver.
Patrick Surtain.
Patrick Surtain, passed on him. We passed on a lot of solid defensive talent there, and that's where we struggled. We've been bad on defense. And unfortunately, Arthur Smith, the offensive guru genius that he was supposed to be, made us bad on offense too, and that is not a good combination. So it's been a rough few years. I've been a season ticket holder for 6 years, and I have watched 6 losing seasons. So it has been a rough half decade for these Falcons.
I am so glad Arthur Smith is now at the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. I'm so glad. I hope that he doesn't just immediately change his ways. Like, all right, let me start using every other player. I just don't understand how Arthur Smith, he didn't use Kyle Pitts to his moment. Because everyone knows, at least I believe, Kyle Pitts can be a generational tight end. He just didn't use him the way as what people wanted. And I keep picking him in not franchise, fantasy, fantasy, and I was always getting disappointed.
You know, I will tell you this, I think, is the year to pick him. I'm going to have at some point in the next week or two a bold predictions for the Falcons team coming out.
Yep.
I'd like to wait until we kind of know the schedule. Thought that was going to be tomorrow, but I'd like to wait till we know it so I kind of have an idea of when the bye week is. But my bold prediction, I'll go ahead and this will be a spoiler alert. My bold prediction, Kyle Pitts finishes as tight end 2 for fantasy.
Okay.
You look at what Kirk Cousins has done with guys like T.J. Hawkinson, Logan Thomas when he was in Washington. He turns those guys into not only serviceable, but like top 5 tight ends. And I think that Kyle Pitts has significantly more talent. My problem with Pitts is exactly what you just said, that Arthur Smith didn't know how to use talent. I don't know if you probably, since you don't follow the Falcons, you probably didn't know this, but around the SEC championship time, Pat McAfee did an interview in Atlanta, and Arthur Smith was about to get on a plane to go to the New York Jets game. And he just happened to catch him, and they're like, "Hey, can you do a 20-minute interview?" He pops on, and he's like, "Yeah, hey, I can sit down," because apparently he and
Pat,
those guys are tight. But when he was in that interview, he gets this T-ball question from the team. From Pat, and Pat's all like, "Oh, hey man, tell me about that Bijan Robinson. He's got that dog in him, man. Such a great player. Tell us all about what you're gonna do with him." And Arthur Smith's answer is prototypical Arthur Smith. It took me watching that to really understand this. His answer was, Pat, we have three solid running backs, and we have we just have a good team all around.
You have a star running back on your team. Use him.
That was the epitome of the problem, is that he viewed every single player, regardless of talent level, as the same cog in the wheel of his offense, and that's just not how the NFL works. There's marginal differences in some of these really high-level guys, but those margins make a huge difference on the actual field. Like when you're playing, London wasn't used appropriately. Kyle Pitts was never targeted in the red zone until late. Bijan Robinson didn't touch the red zone until week 10.
Week 2. I believe Kyle Pitts didn't get a touchdown until like week 12 last year.
It was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous.
I feel like Arthur Smith, how many years was he a Falcons head coach? Was it 2 or 3?
It was 3. And my biggest fear was when I realized how bad of a coach he was in the middle of last year. It was hard to evaluate him in the first 2 years. Going back to the contracts and the talent issues. We just didn't have a solid team. We were eating, when we got rid of Matt Ryan, we were eating, I think that year we ate $80 million in dead cap altogether between Ryan, Jones, Fowler, all the other like small $1 million dink and dunk contracts. We had like $80 million. So a third of our team, or a third of our money, went to pay players that didn't exist on our team anymore. And it's hard to evaluate that. But then last year, the defense turns around under Nielsen, and I hated losing him to Jacksonville, but the defense turns around and is finally good. And the offense, with the offensive-minded genius who handpicked Desmond Ridder in the 3rd round of that draft, can't move the ball and turns the ball over. The one thing he couldn't do was turn the ball over, and that's all he did.
I'm going to be honest. I liked Desmond Ridder for the Falcons when you guys drafted him. I thought it wasn't going to be franchise QB, obviously. But it's like, all right, he can play for like 2 years until Falcons pick up a quarterback in the draft. That went to hell immediately. I'm like, all right, maybe he's not that good as I thought.
Yeah, it was rough to watch. He teased us with his. We did not do his rollout very well the year before. After that Carolina game where Marcus Mariota has the infamous throw the pass up from his back, trying to throw the ball while he's already basically laying on his back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So after that, every person in Atlanta is clamoring for, we're not good. Let's just go ahead and see what we've got in Desmond Ridder. And then Ridder, they waited until we played you guys, the Saints. They waited until they put him into the most hostile environment I could have imagined in week 14 or 15, whatever it was. I think it was week 15. Yeah, right after the bye week, we came to the Saints, and I've been there. And that's one of the most hostile environments I've ever been to. And we put him out there as an away game. And then the next week, it was Christmas weekend, and we went to Baltimore in the coldest Christmas weekend we've had in like a decade, outside in Baltimore. And Tyler Huntley was the quarterback that day, but he still beat us. And then he finally got 2 home games and won both of them to close the year out. Technically, he beat Tom Brady, but
he did beat Tom Brady.
That's not really a credit I would truly give him, but yeah, Desmond disappointed us. He had 0 turnovers in those 4 games too. So that's what I'm getting at, is like, he teased us with those 4 games. It's like, okay, if he could just do that, game manager, be a less good version of Brock Purdy, yeah, then we can win some games. And instead, he turned into a 2 interception, 3 fumble per game guy every single week this past year. So enjoy him, Arizona. He is all yours. We will take Rondale Moore for slot. We will absolutely take that.
I honestly forgot he's in Arizona. I thought he was like in Minnesota for whatever reason. Speaking of quarterback,
absolutely.
How do you feel about having the Coles Cash man, Kirk Cousins as your QB?
Coles Cash, Kirk Cousins. I loved the signing at the time. It still felt at that moment, before we made that splash, it felt like the Falcons are, okay, we're maybe a year away, get the quarterback figured out, maybe trade up into the top 3 to take a quarterback in this draft and see what you can do, like sacrifice a little bit of the future for one of these top 3 guys, and then we build around them going forward. And that was the thought before we got to Kirk Cousins. And then we signed Kirk, and it's like, okay, I love Kirk as long as he can stay healthy. It was a freak injury to him. He was on MVP pace last year. Yeah. He's been a top 12 quarterback. Say what you will. You can say he doesn't work well in prime time. You can say he's not a Monday night quarterback. But he is consistently a 3,500-plus yard, 25-plus touchdown guy every year with minimal interceptions. And he was on a path to be the MVP last year, even though Minnesota around him was not playing well. So I loved getting him as long as he was healthy. We kept Taylor Heineke as our backup. We didn't cut him to try and save more money. So I thought we were set at quarterback, and I loved it. I thought they shifted their mentality to hey, we're going to bring in Coach Raheem Morris. We're going to bring in Zach Robinson, the quarterback whisperer and offensive coordinator. Let him be a shot caller for first time ever. And we are going to do our damnedest to win now with a guy who wants to go out on top, who I didn't know this, but Kirk has a strong connection to Atlanta. His wife is from North Atlanta area, and his father-in-law is a lifelong Falcons fan. He's spent a lot of time in Atlanta, got married around Atlanta. So he's got a connection. So I didn't realize that, but hey, awesome. We got a guy who is thrilled to be in Atlanta.
You got your franchise QB for 4 years.
Yep. Yeah, the way the deal was structured, I figured it would probably be a 3-year deal, because that would get rid of most of the guaranteed money, and then you could kind of see if he's still playing at a high level going into age 40. Okay, hey, the salary cap's probably going to go up by $10 million a year for the next few years, so it's probably not going to be as bad as you thought it was going to be. So, yeah, if he's playing well, why not?
I didn't know Kirk was 35. I thought he was older.
It feels like it. He's been in the league a long time.
Now, speaking of trying to win now, obviously we got to bring up with last few weeks. It's been 2 weeks since the draft. The first overall pick, not first overall pick, pick 8, I believe, overall, 8 or 7 yet, selecting Michael Penix Jr., quarterback. Now, if anyone's watching, you guys have probably all seen Falcons fans going uprate. There's this one guy at Mercedes-Benz having his hands on his head.
That's a common sight these days with the Falcons.
I want to play the clip of Rise Up's reaction to the Falcons pick, and it's hilarious. Let me just get it up.
Michael Penix Jr. Have you lost your freaking mind? Michael Penix, we have Kirk Cousins. We're not going to have this guy see the field for 3 years. What did we do? We need an edge rusher. We need one. Trade freaking back. He's going to be there if you want him later in the first round. What did we freaking do?
And then it stops right there. Your internet cut out. That was perfect.
Yeah. So there, I'll give a quick background to that. So for anybody who is subscribed to Pro Football Focus, PFF.com, I do it so that I have a little bit better, at least, idea of grading on guys. I don't pretend to be a football expert. I'm a fan. I can watch guys and see if they pass the eye test. But I do. You could say it's not the best rating system, okay, but it's something I can use. But they had, I don't know what source they had. I don't know what black magic they were pulling, but they knew the picks way in advance, like at least 2 minutes in advance for every single pick that was coming out. And I was debating, and they had already been ahead on every single pick to that point. I don't have the best setup. Internet's not great. So I'm sitting here with my iPad with Hulu running. It's got the draft. I'm muting it. So it's up in the corner, and I've got PFF that's auto updating as my web page there. And I'm getting ready. If you go to my live stream, feel free to. I say this on a lot of my videos lately. My soul left my body at 1:21 seconds, and it didn't come back until 1:26 when you showed that clip right there. We knew 5 minutes in advance. I didn't even have time to make it full screen so that I couldn't be spoiled and have an even better reaction. So that reaction was me sitting there stewing on it for 5 solid minutes, trying not to say anything to the few people that were watching. They knew it wasn't good. They just didn't know how bad.
Yeah, I saw the chat. Everyone was watching you, just all like mad and like, but you couldn't say anything in the chat. Just like, what's going on? What's going on?
It was. I don't know that I can say it any better. It's the one position that after bringing on Kirk Cousins, we didn't feel like we needed. There have been a lot of guys, the Falcoholics, there's the Everydayers for one of the other shows that have been trying to make some sense of it. And I mean, I can get behind the idea that you don't want to find yourself in the position where we were in for the last 3 years, where there was no Matt Ryan succession plan. But, oh my God, like the reason you draft a rookie quarterback is to utilize with that high of a pick is to put them in early so that you can build the team around them have them on the cheapest deal possible and build around them. Now we virtually guaranteed, because of the way Kirk's contract pans out, we have guaranteed that we are at least going to have $30 million or more tied up into the quarterback position every single year that Michael Penix is on our team. So, we threw the baby out with the bathwater in that one. So we're not taking advantage of that. And the other thing is that you probably don't know this as a guy who doesn't follow the team as well, but our right tackle is Caleb McGarry. Caleb McGarry is a guy that was taken with Chris Lindstrom, same draft. Chris Lindstrom, all-pro, amazing, great, possibly the best right guard in the game. Caleb McGarry, lucky to still be on the team. He is decent in run blocking. He had a career year in his contract year, and we ended up bringing him back for 3 years, but he cannot pass block to save his life. And you have functionally, if for some reason Penix has to see the field in the next 2 years, you have functionally turned a man with very little pass blocking capability into the blindside tackle for Michael Penix. Now, if it may not matter if it all works out, and in 2 to 3 years he probably won't be there anymore, but if he has to go in a pinch, you're going to throw him into a bad situation, very similar to what we did with Desmond Ridder a few years ago when we put him in at the Saints. But just from an X's and O's standpoint, then you also, Kirk's a righty. If you have to go in the middle of the season, you have to completely change how the offense is rolling out. You have to change. It changes how the ball feels to the receiver. It changes which way you're rolling out. It just changes everything. The blocking schemes, you have to flip. And I don't. If you have an entire offseason to do that, fine. Hey, great. That makes a lot of sense. If you can make the changes and do it over the course of 4 to 6 months, that makes sense. But having to go from like 1 week where you think you're healthy with Kirk Cousins and you got a guy sitting on the back, it just it's going to screw us up. Like he's not going to be set up for success if he has to go in ahead of time.
Would you have rather had that's like 7 or not 7, 8? If there's no trades, whatever. Would you rather have obviously the edge, Latu at UCLA?
So everybody thought we were going to take Dallas Turner. I thought
Dallas,
the Falcons, if they were going to take a defensive player, the word on the street was it was going to be Latu. And I liked what I saw in Latu, and he obviously ended up being the first defensive player taken. I can't believe he fell to 15. And I can't believe the Falcons didn't take him. There's been a wonderful meme going around. I don't think I could find it right now, but it's basically a picture of a quarterback throwing the ball and the opposing team throwing the ball. And it's like what we should have done. Kirk Cousins throws the ball, Drake London catches, and then you got Michael Penix as a little stick man sitting in the back, and he's like, oh, yay. And, on the other end of it, you have like Latu or Turner and like sacking the quarterback who can't complete a pass. And then they're like, what we did. And it's, Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix sitting in, Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix, and then the other quarterback is also completing his pass to whoever he wants to, because that's been a major problem. That was why the defense was better last year. You had guys like Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, and Ryan Nielsen is a defensive genius for defensive linemen. He was him from the Saints days. He was great with every year that he was with y'all. And as his first time as a play caller, when you add in Jesse Bates to basically lock down the middle of the field, it was great. You had lockdown corner in AJ Terrell, and you had lockdown safety in Bates. And you had guys like Campbell who were creating pressure. So we had like 45 or 46 sacks last year. And that was more in 1 year than we'd had the 2 previous years combined. And we've lost that. We didn't take that. We've yet to have a guy who can get 10, even close to 10 sacks in a season for like a decade. It felt like I could have I'm a big believer in our guys that we took last year in the draft. And Clark Phillips III and DeMarco Hellams is the other safety and the other corner. But they have their problems, and it would have been nice to take a corner. It would have been nice to buff up the edge room. It would have been really nice, and that would have made more sense for the win now. But I do still think, all of that said, we were the favorite team, regardless of what we did going into the draft. I still think we are the favorite to win the NFC South coming out. I'm not saying it's going to be pretty. I'm just saying I think we're still the favorite to win.
Hot take. Yeah. Do you, speaking of winning the NFC South, does a team obviously the Bucs three-peating the NFC South, you just think the Bucs are whatever, or do you fully believe the Falcons will win the NFC South?
I think the Falcons should have won last year. Poor quarterback play is the only reason we didn't. Poor quarterback play, and Arthur Smith being Arthur Smith. If we have any other coach, and we have if we had 50% better quarterback play from Desmond Ridder, and we had a better offensive-minded coach, if we had somebody that knew how to talent, I think going back to those games, I could easily look back and say, we went 7-10.
Yep.
There's not a good reason that we shouldn't have beaten the Vikings, the Cardinals, and the Commies. That's 10-7, and that wins the division outright. So, yes, I do think we can win. We still do have talent. We still got young guys.
Absolutely. Falcons are absolutely loaded.
But Tampa Bay is not anything. Baker came alive at the end of the year last year. So Baker having a renaissance is not something I'm happy about. I actually thought, the fact when we needed a quarterback and Baker was available, he was a guy that I had kind of said, hey, I would love to give him a shot and see how he does. That would be great. I'm glad that he has found his footing. I hate that it's with the Bucs, but you still have Mike Evans, who I will believe in Mike Evans until he falls off.
Oh yeah, Mike Evans is goated. He's arguably a top 7, a top 8 wide receiver.
Yeah, he
maybe top 5 depends on who you ask.
Yeah, hasn't had less than 1,000 yards with any quarterback. He's played for some bad quarterbacks too, and he has not had less than 1,000 yards in any season. He's getting up there though. He's I want to say he's like 30 or 31 now. I don't know that for sure.
If I just do a quick Google search, he is 30.
30. So I would anticipate, much like Julio fell off a cliff at about 31, but he was good all the way up until then. Mike Evans will probably fall off a cliff within the next 2 years. I just don't know when it is. But yeah, there's been a lot of turnover in the South. I think all of us in the South are looking to beat the Carolina Panthers twice this coming year. But it could, I could see a world where the other 3 teams, Falcons included, split with each other for sure. It's never, it's hard to beat teams twice.
Yeah.
In the NFL, especially in the division. Yeah,
it's as a team, as a Bengals fan, for anyone knows, I know the Saints logos kind of throws it off, but definitely as a fan of the AFC North, having to face the Steelers, Ravens, and Browns twice a year, it is just so tough to beat them twice. I don't even think the Bengals beat any team like one. We beat obviously the Steelers and Browns, I believe, once. Oh no, we got swept by the Steelers.
Yeah, you guys beat each other up. Y'all beat each other way up there. Yeah, Baltimore, even as good as Baltimore this last year, they had tough games against everybody in division. So
I feel like every game they've played was close, besides maybe Miami.
Yeah. And then the emergence of the Browns defense up there, that has got to be scary for everybody up there.
I am like, I hate that the Browns defense is so good.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought like this was a bad take. I thought the Browns defense was going to carry them to a Super Bowl. I had them going to the Super Bowl last year because of that defense, and then they got absolutely blown out by Stroud in the first round. That was fun. It was fun to watch at work, but also not fun because, like, dang, that was my Super Bowl pick.
Well, you're not. Hey, I had the same hot take. I was pulling for it, and like in the ESPN challenge thing, I was pulling for Browns Lions Super Bowl. That's what I wanted last year. That just take the two teams that are traditionally picking at number 1 overall and like throw them in. Like that's a true Madden Super Bowl right there.
I had I believe 49ers Browns in the Super Bowl. I had the Niners winning. I had the Lions, I believe, going to the NFC Championship game, but losing.
And it wouldn't surprise me if the Lions do make the Super Bowl.
I don't think it would be surprised nobody.
Dan Campbell has been an amazing coach for the Lions. I think he's exactly what that culture, what that locker room needed. Started out a little slow, but he is absolutely a player's coach. You just watched, I think they were Hard Knocks last year. Mm-hmm. You watch anybody or talk to any player, see any interview, and they all like are absolutely in love with him. Yeah. So
I would love I wouldn't say my team to get a coach because our Zach Taylor's great. I do think he definitely has some issues, but that's for the Bengals fan talk vid episode.
Oh yeah.
Back on the Falcons.
Yeah.
Do you believe what's the word? No, I'm trying to find the right question. Do you? What do you think is the team? Like, what do you think is the teams that holding you guys back? Is it the offense, defense, special teams? Obviously, we talked about QB with Michael Penix and Kirk Cousins. So obviously, you guys have a stacked offense. Do you believe it's a defense?
I'm gonna go stacked offense. I'm still. This is the Georgia sports fan in me. I will believe it when I see it. Just like when Georgia Bulldogs won the national title, I kept waiting for the ground to fall out. I kept waiting for something to happen because I'm 35 years old, and up to that point, my entire life had been we're gonna get close and we're not gonna make the dance. Like something's gonna happen. We're gonna have absolute disaster happen. So, we do right now, the offense, just like you said, it appears on paper this offense is good to go. We brought on Rondale Moore through the trade. We've got Darnell Mooney. These should be our wide receiver 2 and 3. Rondale Moore probably in the slot. Drake London hopefully can emerge as the number 8 overall player that we wanted him to be. I go back to that draft, and I think we missed out on a couple guys. We missed out on Kyle Hamilton in that draft.
Yeah.
Who's been a great safety for is he a Texan, I believe, or is he Baltimore? I can't remember.
He is a Kyle Hamlin or not?
Kyle Hamilton.
He is a Baltimore Raven.
Yeah, he's okay. Yeah, I thought so. He's been great for Baltimore. He was like a top 5 draft pick in that draft, and we passed on him for Drake London. That's kind of been our problem is we have drafted luxury picks the last 4 years, and we have needed foundational defensive players because the defense up until this past year, absolutely, the defense was Swiss cheese. We had Dean Pease, who was really not a great defensive-minded coach. Ryan Nielsen comes in, absolutely turns us around. But now we're absent Ryan Nielsen. We've got Jimmy Lake, who was okay with the Rams last year. I think Raheem Morris can make, he can turn your 3-star, 4-star guys into all-pro, 5-star looking talent, as proven last year with the Rams. And then you brought on Zach Robinson. It's going to be interesting to see what Zach Robinson, as the quarterback whisperer, does as a first-time shot caller. So there's a lot of unknowns with this team. Is Zach Robinson going to be a solid shot caller? Is Drake London going to take that step forward? Is Kirk going to freaking be healthy by the time we start the season?
Will Kirk cook?
Yeah, will he cook? Is he going to be ready? Are we going to have to learn 2 different packages, one for the left-handed quarterback, one for the right hand? Are we going to have that ready at all times? Or is Taylor Heineke going to stay on and be that middleman in between them so that we don't miss a beat, hopefully? Having seen Heineke play a few games last year, he has absolutely no zip on the ball. I'm fine to not see him play again, but it's definitely been defense. We can talk a little bit more about this draft in a second because there is something that's been a major sticking point for Falcons fans, and
obviously it's not the Michael Penix trade.
It's not just that. It's the rest of the draft too. It's very obvious that we wanted to focus on defensive line for the draft, which is great. The problem with that, and you're going to be familiar with both of these players, at DT number 1 and DT number 2, you have Grady Jarrett and you have David Onyemata. You could basically put whoever you want to in that position. They both played great when they were healthy last year. And the second pick you take, you trade up for, you have Cooper DeJean was still on the board. I think we all thought we were going to take Cooper DeJean. Yeah. And you take Rook Orororo. It's like Scooby-Doo. Rook Orororo. Yeah. So good player. I think he would have been there at 43. And you traded a day 2 pick. You traded the 79th overall pick along with your second rounder to get there. And I think he would have been available. But he's going to be DT number 3 unless you're putting him on edge for some reason. And then you come back and you take a 3rd-round edge rusher, Braylon Trice. Great 2 years at Washington. I'm excited for him. I think he could potentially be a diamond in the rough. You end up with come back in the 4th round, taking another defensive tackle, the Oregon guy. His name is
I got it. Yeah, it is Brandon Doris.
Yeah, Doris. He was supposed to be like a round 3 guy, so you got him at kind of a steal, hopefully. Then you take, I think his name's Latham, the linebacker out of the inside linebacker, not outside linebacker, inside linebacker. Yeah,
JD Bergeron.
Bergeron, my bad. Anyways, you take him, the Notre Dame.
I'm bad at pronouncing names.
It's okay, but my thing is like, you also have Nate Landman, who was a revelation for this team as an undrafted free agent last year. Or you have Caden Ellis, one of the guys you're probably familiar with is a pseudo Saints fan. And then you also have Troy Anderson that you took in the 2nd round a couple of years ago who was hurt last year but was showing flashes before that happened. You basically took a guy that's inside linebacker number 4 at best on the roster. Then you come back, you take another running back. I don't have a problem with taking a running back in the 6th round. Who cares? Like you need youth and you need practice squad guys to potentially come in there. You take a wide receiver who's probably going to be a
Casey Washington.
Teamer. He's got good hands. I do like that. But
living in Illinois, I want to say on Casey Washington. Yeah. Dude is a stud.
Yeah, I think what was the stat? He only dropped 3 balls last year, or I think that was the deal. I think he had like 80 plus targets, and he only had 3 drops the entire time. So I love that stat on him. So I don't mind it, especially if he ends up being solid. And then you take another defensive tackle in Zion Logue. So the things we needed were edge rusher, corner, Probably safety because Richie Grant, as the Falcoholics say, UCF legend Richie Grant is not it. DeMarco Helms, our 7th rounder from Alabama last year, played circles around the guy, so I'm excited for him to be there. But still, it's a 7th rounder, so he had a good season, but it's. I just hope he has a follow-up season. But you have these holes, and again, you didn't take an edge rusher. You took one edge rusher in a room that is full of guys that might get 4 to 6 sacks, and you needed a guy who's going to get like 10. And that was my big problem, is that this draft is 100%, including Penix. This is a draft for depth for the future. Mm-hmm. This is we're getting the replacements. This signals to me that when Grady Jarrett's contract is done and when David Onyemata's contracts are done, that we're not re-signing those guys, that we're going to let them walk and we're going to let the youth take over with our 4th rounder and our 2nd rounder. And they'll be gone on offsetting season. So we'll have Grady for an extra year, and David Onyemata could be gone, after this year potentially and not owe that much money. So Onyemata was another Saint guy that came over with Ryan Nielsen. I loved him. I thought it was a great signing, and you could tell when he wasn't in the game, it was problematic. So, but again, it's disappointing to see. You feel like you went all in on free agency and then you punted the draft, and it didn't have to be that way. It was not a zero-sum game. If you take a corner and an edge rusher or either one of them, you're still going to get great production. You're still going to end up, hopefully, with a guy that can be a cornerstone of that side of the ball or of that portion of the defense, and they're still going to have an impact. It's just, it wasn't a zero-sum game, and we didn't need a quarterback. So what if the quarterbacks next year are not great? Trade up in the draft after that if you're doing well. Go ahead and trade the future away a little bit then to get the guy that you're trying to get to replace Kirk. So you don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. You might have some of these guys who are sophomores and freshmen in college right now end up looking better than Patrick Mahomes. You don't know.
Yeah, no, the draft is so long.
Yeah, it'd be a tall order. I mean, Joe Burrow, he didn't look good until his final year.
Yeah,
and then
second.
Yeah,
my bad.
You don't know, and that's the problem. Is even though it's not a strong quarterback class next year, you don't know. Maybe some guys, maybe it clicks for them. Maybe it turns out to be, you might not have a bunch of them, but maybe you get 2 guys out of that draft that are 10-year starters in the NFL.
Maybe Quinn Ewers from Texas is a 10-year starter.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. It was painful to watch. You guys all saw my reaction just then.
Yeah.
It's still painful. I'm getting animated thinking about it just because it's been so I feel like we did great in free agency. I just feel like we didn't do well with the draft. That's it. We didn't mix them well together. So we have a cake and then we botched the icing. So we still have some good foundational pieces, but we could have gotten the best icing possible, and we didn't do that. So yeah.
Dude, I can just tell you're just all in disbelief. It's like this team could be good, but we always way to F it up every single time.
Yep. And that is my favorite phrase to say to people. So in my section, I'm a season ticket holder. Had it for 6 years, and it's been 6 bad years. But we've moved around, and we're in a section now that unfortunately ends up selling out to a bunch of away teams. And whenever we're winning, going into the 4th quarter, and it's usually there's an away team fan sitting beside me. And I'm always nice to the away fans, even the Saints fans. I'm not going to get into it with. I've almost seen a fight in my section with a Saints fan, but I'm not going to be mean to anybody. But whenever they're down and they're thinking, man, we're about to, this sucks going to a game that we thought we should have won. I'm like, well, give it time. We find ways to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Mm-hmm. So just give it time. We'll find a way to falcon it, and that's turned into a true meaningful saying in the NFL.
Let's speak on top of that. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since kind of brought up the thing, how long have you been a Falcons fan? Your entire life?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Georgia area.
Okay.
I don't want to say that I have been a diehard Falcons fan my entire life. I have always been a Georgia guy, like UGA, University of Georgia. It's my alma mater. And I loved college football because I always viewed it as a more pure sport.
Yeah.
Guys out there for the love of the game. You didn't have the NIL stuff where it was about money and all that at the time. I'm sure guys were paid under the table, but it had a better visual aspect to it. And, just being in Georgia, the University of Georgia reigns supreme in terms of football. It's definitely
I think it's still like kind of is, with Georgia being they went back-to-back natties and then
and I will tell you this, had it been a 12-team playoff this past year, I do think Georgia would have bounced back and would have won the whole thing again. I definitely think we played our worst game against Alabama, and we were still 3 points away from going on and being in the playoffs. So I think if we stayed, I know we're talking pros, but I think Georgia could have definitely in a 12-team playoff run the gambit and run the table. But hey, we'll find that out for this year. But I've been a Falcons fan I've always been a fan. I've never not been a fan. The first time I ever really remember watching them was the 1998 Super Bowl run with Jamal Anderson doing the Dirty Bird and all that. So I remember that. I remember watching what I'm sure Minnesota fans still consider to be one of their absolute worst moments of all times, with the missed field goal and the Falcons coming back and finding a way to win that game and go to the Super Bowl. I didn't really follow them a lot in between there. I was kind of off and on. And I started doing fantasy football in college. Yep. And that's what turned me into a pro fan, a true pro fan. And I just picked right back up as falling in love with the team. There was a little bit of controversy at that time. Michael Vick had his dog running thing. Yep. I think I think he's paid his time, and he's genuinely remorseful of that. If you've ever listened to him talk about it, he says he was running with a crowd that he shouldn't have. He's cut the people that kind of got him into that out of his life. But, this actually might be a good topic to talk about in a second, is culture for the team. But I came in basically at Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan has been my quarterback for this team. And we just retired him as a Falcon. Bittersweet. He took us.
Oh, did he sign a one-day contract?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I knew he retired. I didn't know he retired a Falcon.
Yeah, he retired a Falcon. So he signed a one-day deal and retired a Falcon. But he was my guy. Roddy White, Julio Jones, Tony Gonzalez when he was with us after his time with Kansas City. Devonta Freeman, Michael the Burner Turner, all of the, that's my Falcons that I know. So I don't profess to have been a diehard as long as some of the guys that are at that stadium. But I do love this team. We've had some good years. They just haven't been in the recent past.
Speaking of recent past, I know it's not recently, but we got to bring up, as what everyone memes about on the internet, 28-3.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't going to bring it up because I feel like it's kind of a dead meme at this point. It's beating up a dead horse.
Yeah. Is that 7 years ago now?
It's been. I just want to give my point of view. I was watching the game. I had to hang out with a couple buddies of mine. I wanted the Falcons to win. It was the peak of Dynasty Brady era. I was tired of Tom Brady, even though I was 11 or 12 at the time.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, I'm tired of Tom Brady winning. I'm sick of it. I just want the Falcons to win. I checked my phone or my iPod at the time. I wasn't allowed to have a phone. They're up 28-3. I'm like, all right, Falcons are going to win. I go outside to play basketball. I walk back inside. They lose. I'm like, what happened?
I was going to say, you have to also add into that there was just about 20 minutes left in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't forget that part.
I wasn't really keeping track of at the time of it, just because at the time I was into football, but I wasn't diehard as I am now.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to 28-3?
So, for those of you who don't know, I don't think I've said on this, I may have earlier. I am a medical doctor. I'm a licensed physician in the state of Georgia. This is a hobby for me. I love it. But I was in residency at the time. I was in my first year of residency, and I was hosting a Super Bowl party. There was not another Falcons fan there, but there were people that just liked the NFL in my residency program. And I was hosting a Super Bowl party, and we had I'll talk about it in a second. I don't want to curse too much on your show here, but
You're good.
we So we it's pretty late. They start the Super Bowl late, but I'm ecstatic. And one of the Miami fans there, still to this day, laughs his butt off about the fact that just like you watched my soul leave my body with the Penix pick. He basically has made the comment that watching my soul slowly chip away over the course of the next hour as the Falcons made irrational decisions with Kyle Shanahan throwing the ball instead of running it. We literally could have knelt every single play.
Yeah.
And you would have run enough clock off statistically with all the plays that happened that Tom Brady would not have had enough time to win. You took Matt Bryant out of field goal range with some of the stupidity that happened, and you could have won the game with a field goal, and you did stupid things that took him out. We had a doll for residency. For those of you who don't know, residency is the time when you're basically, they call it residency because you're a resident of the hospital. You basically live there because of all the time that you spend there. We had a doll called the Damn It doll that whenever things were going bad, we would take that sucker, and it had a cute little poem on it, and we would slam it on the table and yell, damn it, damn it, damn it, do all that stuff. To that point, the Damn It doll is with us, and in the fourth quarter, I am consistently just slamming the Damn It doll the entire fourth quarter because nothing was going right. And when we did not get the ball to start the overtime, I'm like, it's over. It's done. We're not winning this.
We've choked.
Our defense was gassed. I will say it was masterful play calling by Bill Belichick. I think they ran 90-plus offensive touches for the Patriots. I think that was like 90-plus offensive snaps for the Patriots, if I remember. It was something ungodly, but they wore our defense down. We scored quickly, and they wore us down, and we had nothing left for the end of that game. So, I think it was James White who got the go-ahead touchdown. Is what it is. Once they had the ball, once Tom Brady had the ball in overtime, I'm like, it's over. So, but yeah, it was heartbreaking then. I'll tell you what it felt most like, because a year later I went to the when the national championship for Georgia versus Alabama was in Atlanta. I scored tickets for that, and I went to that game. And
that was the next year.
Now I think it was 2018 national championship. The Super Bowl was 2017, and then the next year in 2018, watched Georgia in heartbreaking fashion lose to Tua Tagovailoa in his opening start. Not even a start. He just came in middle of the game and watched us lose to him live in person in that end zone in the upper deck. And my soul was crushed. So just, you go from Super Bowl, you go from that. There's a fun story with my wife and I where I had kind of been somewhat hitting on my wife at the time too, but she was kind of interested, kind of not, but I was not being super obvious about my interest. And we ended up dating 2 years later, and that led to marriage. But at the time, the same night the Falcons lost, I was like talking to her about, hey, we should get together soon and hang out. She's like, oh yeah, hey, we should catch up. Can I bring my boyfriend? I'm like, oh my God. So the girl that I was hoping to talk to had a boyfriend. So it was like doubly bad.
It's both soul crushings at the same time.
It worked out though. I couldn't be happy with her. She did just get here a minute ago. I just waited for her. She's not coming in or anything. But so it was bad in a lot of ways. But yeah, man, it was that has honestly, they talk about demons in locker rooms. That has been a demon in the Falcons locker room. There's not a single coach still left over from that.
Yep.
You don't have the same general manager. All the guys who were there, I think Grady's still here from that, but almost all the other guys who were there for that are gone. And there is still, you hear guys talk about, there's a shadow of something bad in that locker room. Are you familiar with Kurt Benkert?
I am, yes.
Yeah, so he talks about it. He was a backup quarterback during that era for the Falcons, or a practice squad guy, and he talks about it actively. He's like, you could just feel it, that there was something lingering for the team. And I'm like, that just makes all the sense. And it has felt like we had one winning season after the year after, and we have had a losing season ever since. We have not. This is. You probably do know this, but it's going to blow your mind if you hadn't heard this yet. We have yet to host a playoff game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
I've been knowing that, yeah.
Yeah. So we have this beautiful stadium. Wonderful. Hey, honestly, anybody out there watching this, if you ever get to go, tickets have been cheap because the Falcons have been terrible. I'm hoping they get more expensive and it gets good again. But if you ever get a chance to go for any reason, absolutely go to an Atlanta United game for soccer.
Oh my gosh, they play. They
yeah.
As an MLS guy, or not really, but somewhat of an MLS guy, Atlanta United fans pack that stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They love soccer in Atlanta.
Absolutely. I've been to one game before, and it was great. Went with one of my friends who's disabled, so we actually got really great seats because of that. But it was a truly a great environment. I just don't make it out to Atlanta, although I still live about an hour and a half from Atlanta, so it's tough to get there for some of those events. And I work an hour the wrong way from Atlanta from where I live, so it's a little tough. But hey, if the Falcons, here's the other thing from last year. We did not get a single primetime game last year. Not one. Not any. We played 1 o'clock games or 4 o'clock games when we were on the West Coast every single week. The only technical primetime game we got was 9:30 in the morning against, I think it was the Jaguars in London.
Probably.
So, yeah, we did not get any primetime games last year. And I'm hopeful with some of the storylines that we do have this year. Let's briefly talk about that. You got Kirk Cousins, who will be going back to Minnesota at some point. So that's a big storyline. And then you have there's one more. I'm trying to remember what the other storyline is. There's one more that I was thinking made a lot of sense. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. But definitely that's going to be one of our bigger ones is the Minnesota game.
Also, I looked it up. I know this is kind of off topic now.
Yeah.
But the national championship game where the Tua Tagovailoa came in and just destroyed the boat, not destroyed, but won for Bama, wasn't even a year. It was like 11 months after the Super Bowl.
Yep. It felt like it too. It truly felt like it. It was that was a rough time to be a Falcons fan, a rough time to be a Georgia fan. Atlanta United won the MLS Cup sometime in that time frame, though, so that was good.
And then the Braves
turned around. The Braves were and the Bulldogs were the two teams that really, for the entire state, turned it around, starting to win championships. The Braves winning the World Series, and then I think same year the Dogs won their first of back-to-back championships. So it's been better to be in Atlanta. The Hawks still suck. They got knocked out of the playoffs in the play-in game. Don't know what's going to happen there. We're probably going to lose Trey at some point. He'll probably go on to somebody else. But, I feel like the Falcons and the Hawks have both kind of been in the same position.
Yeah.
Just good enough to have crappy draft position. So that's kind of where the Falcons have been. That's where the Hawks have been. The Braves are consistently good.
And then United somewhat. Right now they're not doing too hot, but There's still a lot of months left in soccer.
We'll see if the NHL does an expansion. Atlanta, I think, at the time was not ready for a hockey team. No. I think Atlanta is an incredibly transient city, a migratory city. So I do think there are enough people from the Midwest and the North who would be in Atlanta who would love to have a hockey franchise, or at minimum have a team where they could watch their own team get to play periodically. And I think Atlanta is ready for a hockey team again. I don't know that it should be the Thrashers. I think that kind of came and died. I think they should definitely kind of start from scratch. But until then, I'll continue to be a Vegas Golden Knights fan. So, knocked out of the Stanley Cup. But, hey, we won one already, so I'll take it.
Yep. I totally believe if the NHL wants to expand, they got to bring it back to Atlanta. I don't know the Thrashers, as you said, the Thrashers would come back. I don't know why. I felt like the name the Thrashers are kind of like something like 2000-ish. I know that's what the time period they were in. I just don't know if they would, what name it would be, but that's another video for another day.
Yeah, if you didn't know this, basically all the professional sports teams in Atlanta at one point in time, other than the Braves, were bird themed. And the reason for Brown, except for that, college. But you had the Hawks, Falcons, and Thrashers. The Thrashers, the brown Thrasher is the state bird of Georgia, so that's where that comes from.
Okay.
But that it didn't have success. You didn't have the fan base for it, so I do think it needs to kind of start over from scratch again.
Hey, if Utah can get a hockey team, why not Atlanta?
Yeah, Salt Lake City getting a hockey team. They've got a basketball team. Now they've got a hockey team, and we'll.
Yep, they're probably going to be called the Utah Yetis, which I think is a baller name, but whatever. They should have been called the Utah Coyotes, but they're kind of disbanded the Arizona Coyotes for now.
You know, I can't believe you had King Angus on last time. I can't remember what his first name was. I genuinely can't believe that Phoenix couldn't hold on to a professional team. It's the 5th largest city in the country. I can't believe that they couldn't hold on to a professional team. Just kind of blows my mind. I guess if you think about it, the LA Chargers have nobody at their stadium.
No,
so I guess
even the Rams don't have anybody.
Yeah,
they have some fans, but
I don't think the Rams should have left St. Louis. I think that was a bad thing, but anyway, it is what it is.
There's always going to be rumblings. Well, NFL come back to St. Louis, especially with how good the Battlehawks attendance is, with 30,000 people showing up on a Saturday. When what was it? Even the same day the Cardinals were playing, they were kind of equal on attendance, and I think yesterday there was more Battlehawks fans on the game on Sunday than there was Cardinals fans on the Monday, which shows now the Battlehawks are St. Louis's team, besides the Blues.
Well, you know, if the NFL does expand, it certainly looks like they're going to expand international first. I think you guys were talking about a team in Toronto. That does make sense. I think you could get away with a team in Toronto, Mexico City, and 2 in London for an international division, though that would kind of suck for the 2 teams that have to travel, and it would suck for players. But that makes sense. As far as, I've thought about domestic teams, like where could we have more teams? I think maybe like Norfolk, Virginia, San Antonio, Texas, St. Louis makes sense.
St. Louis got to be on the list.
Yeah. I'm not sure about a 4th city there. It's kind of tough after that point. But, I'm sure there are some cities that could do. I guess you could look into the Northwest a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, what is it, Boise, Idaho? It's a little small. Salt Lake, heck, why not? Salt Lake's starting to turn into a sports town. Let's go with Salt Lake. So
I feel like honestly, if they had to add another NFL team, and I've done a short brief video on this on relocation teams. I'll do a video on maybe new expansion teams. Toronto's definitely up there. There was talks about a Winnipeg in a NFL team, but I don't think Winnipeg I don't think they have the passion for football as they do for the hockey, because hockey, I don't want to be stereotypical, but they love hockey in Winnipeg. The Whiteouts are in the playoffs. Amazing. Toronto's kind of like, I don't know, modern U.S. city. Is just in Canada. I think they could hold an NFL team. St. Louis, we've seen in the past, they can hold when the team is good. I'm really surprised they don't have a team in Alabama. Somewhat like something southern, but not the Saints or Falcons.
Birmingham makes sense. It's a little small, but here's your problem. Roll Tide roll for everybody in Alabama. The University of Alabama runs the state of Alabama. Auburn has a little itty-bitty corner over on the east side of the state, but otherwise, it is all Alabama. You would have to convert all you'd have to use the same color scheme. You might have to be the Birmingham Elephants just so that you could keep people from who wanted to be a fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide and whatever Birmingham came into. But
Birmingham Stallions.
Yeah, Birmingham Stallions. I think I think we were talking about this in pre-show that they've won back-to-back for their league, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry, my dad was in the background. Yeah, back-to-back USFL champs. They're currently 6-0 in the UFL. They're facing the 5-1 Battlehawks.
Gotcha.
This Saturday, which is going to be a good game. Yeah. No, the Stallions are definitely on the rise.
Yeah, so Birmingham could get a team. I just don't know. It gets tough after that. I guess Memphis could potentially be a place that gives a team. There are some smaller cities. Yeah. You'd really have to consolidate some markets down. But
I'm looking
Anyways,
at.
man, you got any more questions for me on my Dirty Birds?
No, not really. I think we've talked about everything that I want to talk about. Actually, we've talked about culture already. With the brief 28-3.
We actually haven't talked culture too much. I'll give my quick thought on the Falcons.
Yeah.
We talked about the team, but Atlanta is a unique city. It is a very transient city. There's a lot of people that move in from other places. I don't want to get into this too much because there's definitely some things that you could get demonetized for. You could end up talking about that are problematic, and I don't really. And I'm certainly not the person to talk about that. But when you're on the message boards, when you have this fan base that is like diehard, we never should have moved on from Michael Vick. Deion Sanders is, he was the face of the franchise, and he is a god to some of these people. And then you have, and a lot of these same people are also the same ones that think Matt Ryan was the worst decision we've ever had, that he was no good, that he didn't do anything good for our team. And then you have a camp that's the opposite. That's like, hey, Matt Ryan and that era of Falcons are the greatest that have ever been. We had too many problems with the other. So there's a very clear, whether you want to call it, if you want to say it's racial, if you want to say it's just, new generation, young generation, or older generation, whatever it is, there is definitely, for the fan culture, from what I see, there's a divide there on people who, and even when you go to the stadium, you'll see Vic jerseys, you'll see Sanders jerseys.
Yeah.
You won't see a lot of the newer guys. And maybe it's because we've been so bad for the last few years that we haven't been keeping a lot of these players. If you bought a Desmond Ridder jersey, you are SOL now. I think Cousins will have some good success with jerseys, and I think Penix will have good success. But beyond that, man, it's tough. It's definitely tough. It's hard to get some of these fans to buy in on the idea that we're going to be good going forward. I don't blame them for that. It's been a hard sell for the last 6 years. We should have been good last year, and it just fell apart. I don't blame anybody for being upset with the team, but definitely there is a fan cultural divide. You ever get in the message boards, any of it, there's a cultural divide with the fans.
No, it's a weird time to be a Falcons fan for you. And I've talked to other Falcons fans on Twitter. They basically must have said the same thing as you. It's like, I don't know what this team is. I'm hoping the future of this team's good, but we'll see.
Me too, man. Nobody wants it more than me.
Yep.
But yeah, hey, I will at some point in the next 2 weeks, I'll have a bold prediction video coming out. I love fantasy football.
Can't wait for that.
I don't talk fantasy football on my channel too much because I don't feel like I can do the X's and O's very well, but I do love it. I love dynasty leagues. I'll probably have a rookie talk at some point in the future, but bold predictions, man. This is my only spoiler. Tight end 2, Kyle Pitts. He's going to be tight end 2 this year.
There you go.
Your faith will be rewarded.
There you go. All right, man. Appreciate you coming on. Talking about all the Falcons. Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate you coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, this is Rise Up Reactions. His YouTube channel is going to be in the link in the description. If you're on Twitter, it should be also on my tweet that I put out before this show started. But thanks for joining, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
All right, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, let me just do this. Anyone who's watching, I appreciate you joining for the second episode of Rise Up Reaction. Second episode of Fan Talk. Third episode will be about, I don't know, I'll figure that out. Anyway, thanks you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Definitely check out Rise Up Reactions YouTube channel. He makes amazing content. Definitely on the Falcons, die hard, as you guys have seen throughout the last hour. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night.